Welcome to the Brutus Monroe channel. This is Annie Collins, and today we're going to be creating this Easter card. We're going to use the items from the Bunny Hugs inspiration box. We're going to start with the Bunny Hugs stamp set. This is a 35-piece set. You get a variety of images here. You get 2 bunnies, several eggs, a little lamb, some bunny ears, lots of florals, butterflies, another smaller little element stamps here. And you get 3 sentiments. You get spring blessings, hopping by to say hi, and excited for Easter. We're going to use the excited for Easter. This little bunny here holding the egg, the larger eggs, the butterfly, and the small floral right here. So we're also going to be using the Bunny Hugs sequin mix, which has got lovely shades of purple and of soft yellow, the Perfect Blend alcohol marker paper, and the Aqua Pigment watercolor paper. We're going to be using a variety of aqua pigments, and I'll make sure to list them all in the description box below for you. We're going to be using those to create our background. We're also going to be bringing in the Raven ink, and off screen, to save us some time, I did use the Distress Oxide and Tumbled glass along with a cloud stencil to create a background. I also stamped and colored using my alcohol markers the little bunny holding the egg, the floral, and the butterfly, and I fussy cut these all out. Now there are coordinating dies for this set. I do not have them, that's why I fussy cut them, but they have beautiful coordinating dies for this, for just about every image in the stamp set. Alright, so here's the little card panel that we're going to use for our background, and that is where I use the tumbled glass with the cloud stencil. And I did that, like I said, off screen. Okay, so that's going to be our background, and then here's the perfect, this is the Aqua Pigment watercolor paper. We're going to be using that in a few minutes. And here's a 110-pound card base. Alright, so I'm going to set everything else to the side so we can create our background. And this is going to be an A2 card, and I've trimmed this down to 4 by 5 1/4, and an A2 card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Alright, so, and the Perfect alcohol marker, Perfect Blend paper is where I used for my images earlier. So we're going to put in the splat box. And then I'm going to spritz my Aqua Pigment watercolor paper with some water. And I'm just going to start dropping little drops of the Aqua Pigments down here. We're going to start with turquoise. And then we'll move into magenta. A little yellow green here in a second. And then we'll bring in orange. And regular blue. And a tiny bit of white. So as you can see, I'm just going to splat these, add water, dry in between, so I'm creating some layers. And I want to create basically that Easter egg coloring feel to this. So as I add color, I just add water, and I keep softening it up. And if anything gets a little muddy, I pick it up with a little bit of paper towel. I just keep doing this, mixing my colors, spraying them to get that wash look, dabbing off anything that starts to get a little too muddy, and then I will dry in between. And this Aqua Pigment watercolor paper does really well with the Aqua Pigments, is made for that, so it can take quite a bit of water, which I love, without it just pilling or anything else. So here we go, keep adding until I get the blend I want, and I want to make sure all my edges are in here. Once I have that, I'm going to dry this, and then we will have some warping, but it's not going to be so much that it's not, anything that a little adhesive can't handle. So I'm adding a little bit more of the magenta because I lost a bit of it because that was one of the first layers I put in, and I wanted to bring in more of that magenta. So like I say, I keep adding and drying until I get it how I want. And now I have a little extra of the magenta and the turquoise in a little paint palette, and I'm bringing in a detail brush, and I'm doing some splatters. We'll do the same thing with the white. I'm just going to add a little bit of splatters here and there. And just to give it that nice little feel to it, just a little bit here and there. Because when you dye your eggs, you get that speckly splatter look to them, which I think is so pretty. Which also is very on trend with all the splatter we've been doing with our cards. I'm giving this one last dry to make sure everything's good here, because we're going to be stamping on this panel, so I want to make sure it's nice and dry. Alright, so I'm going to remove the splat box. I'm going to bring in my stamping platform as well as our new stick and stamp mat. I'm going to remove the protective cover here. I'm going to place my panel down on here, and that's going to hold it for us. And now I'm going to place the little eggs in the center. Why am I placing it in the center? Because I'm going to be using the rest of this panel for our card. So I'm going to get all my eggs placed where I want them in the center, trying to get a little bit of each of those colors in there. And then I'm going to bring in the Raven ink, and I'm going to stamp using the Raven ink. So now you have this black with all these tie-dye colors coming through, just like you have an Easter egg. So here it is really quick. Let me show you. Now I'm going to release my paper, and to do that, all you do is curl your mat just a bit, and the paper just pops right off. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the perfect blend cardstock that I have left over so we can stamp our sentiment. I'm going to again use the Raven ink, and I'm going to stamp this using a little pressure here. I'm going to do it twice because this is a solid sentiment stamp, and I want to make sure it's on there really well. Alright, so again I'm going to curl my mat, and my paper just comes right off. Put the protective cover on my mat and set it to the side. So now we're going to cut out the center here, but before we do that, I want to heat set this really quickly. I don't want any smudging of any ink. I'm just going to cut all those little eggs out, and I'm going to just do this really quick just to show you, and then the rest I did off screen. So I just separate them, and then I just cut right against the line here, moving my paper and not my scissors, keeping my scissors steady, and there it is. I'm going to repeat the process with all the eggs. Now that I have everything fussy cut, I'm going to bring in my Memento black, Tuxedo black marker here, and go around the edges, and that'll make it nice and clean. So now I'm going to go ahead and adhere this multicolored panel that we created with our Aqua Pigment inks, and I'm just going to place it on the card base. So I'm just using some tear tape on the back, and I'm going to use a little bit of my Barely Art glue as well, because we have a little bit of warping, and I want to make sure to minimize that. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the adhesive here. I had to unclog my glue really quickly. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and place my panel down, remove the rest of the backing of my tape, and then no one will know you cut that out from the center, those eggs, because this panel will go right on top, and that's the one we did with the tumbled glass. And I want to take off a little bit more because I want more of that speckled colored paper on the background to show. And I love the way the aqua pigments, you can use them for coloring your images, but you could also use them to create these fun backgrounds. So again, I'm going to use some Barely Art glue and some tear tape to adhere this panel onto our card base. And now we can start adding our images. So I'm going to go ahead and put some foam adhesive on the back of our bunny and 2 of our eggs, because the other 2 eggs I'm going to adhere flat to the card. I'm also going to put a little bit of adhesive on our butterfly and our sentiment. And our floral, we're going to adhere flat to the card. So I'm going to do a quick layout of how I want everything to go. And then I'm going to start placing all of my images down. I'm just getting this last bits of the tape on here, and then I'll remove all the backing. So I'm removing all the backing off the adhesive here. I'm going to put my bunny all the way to the right here. And then see, some of the eggs I'll place down, and I'm not putting them straight, I'm kind of putting them, you know, some laying to the side, some straight. And then I'll have two of them raised and like the other two flat, like I said. I'm going to add here our little floral on this end just to balance it out. I'm curving the butterfly wings just a bit. And I'm putting some adhesive on either side of the wings. And then I'll put a little bit of adhesive in the center, a little bit of liquid glue, so my center can stick down and then the wings pop up. Now I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive, foam adhesive on the back of our sentiment, which I fussy cut all around so that it's not a squared off section or a little blocked off. I just went around the sentiment. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing off of that, and I'll adhere that to the center top here. And all that's left now is to bring in our little sequins. So I'm going to start placing some around our sentiment and some between our eggs. So I have a few on the bottom down here by the bunny and the eggs, towards the top, and then by the floral, and then the rest I'll put right around our sentiment and our butterfly. And our card is complete. So I'm going to get my camera to zoom in here so you can see. And you can see how it looks just like we did some egg coloring. So again, let's go over the products I used to create this card. We use our stick and stamp mat, our bunny hug stamp set, Aqua Pigment watercolor paper, perfect blend cardstock, and our Aqua pigments and our Raven ink, along with the bunny hugs sequins. Thank you so much for being here.